Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is...
This is the story of Revin and Hanan, a young couple whose wedding night in northern Iraq was meant to be a symbol of hope after years of conflict. On the 26th of September, 2023, they stood beneath a glittering ceiling surrounded by 1,000 guests, dancing to a song that marked the beginning of their new life together. But within moments, celebration turned to chaos. A spark meant to light up the room instead set off one of the deadliest wedding tragedies in modern history. And as the cameras kept rolling, the world witnessed a night that transformed love and joy into horror and loss. These are 6 most disturbing videos caught on camera. It was in the early hours of February 15th, 2020, when a frantic call broke the quiet of the night. A man's trembling voice told dispatchers that his roommate Amy Harwick had been attacked. He could hear her screaming. He said,
"Somebody just attacked my roommate. We're at 2086 Mound Street. Find anything."
Okay, how was the assault? What happened?
It's a C. I don't know. I was downstairs. I heard screaming. Please get a cop here.
Okay.
And moments later, police arrived at the Hollywood Hills home. The man, identified as Michael Herman, was visibly shaken. He insisted he heard Amy cry out, saying she had been thrown to the ground. Officers noticed blood on his hands, and suspicion immediately clouded the air.
Hey, somebody pat him down, please.
Hey, stand up. He might be a because he's got blood.
Probably on my couch.
Anyone else inside? It's the LAPD. Come out with your hands up.
Inside the home, signs of struggle were clear. The bathroom was in disarray. Glass lay shattered. And moments later, officers found Amy's body 20 feet below her third-story balcony. She was still alive, but barely, trembling in seizures as the police requested an ambulance. Amy, a well-known family and marriage therapist who often appeared on television, had lived in what many considered a safe neighborhood. But that night, safety was an illusion. Amy's injuries were catastrophic. She had severe head trauma, a broken neck, and internal bleeding. Doctors later confirmed she had been strangled before being thrown from the balcony. While first responders fought to save her life, investigators moved through the house. What they found was unsettling. The bedroom was messy, with the bed covers tossed aside and a pool of urine on the bathroom floor, often a tragic sign of someone being strangled. Then came a discovery that deepened the mystery. A syringe filled with nicotine lying near the balcony. High doses of nicotine act as a deadly poison, shutting down vital organs. Yet Amy was known for her clean lifestyle. No alcohol, no drugs. Michael confirmed this, saying she did not even drink. The syringe did not belong in that house. And so detectives began asking themselves the inevitable question, who would want Amy dead? At first, Michael seemed like the obvious suspect. His arms were scratched, his hands stained with blood, and his story seemed too dramatic to believe. But the more detectives listened, the more his panic sounded genuine. He said he had come home to screams, tried to scare off whoever was inside, and found Amy on the ground when he went to check. He fully cooperated with investigators, and his account was consistent. Still, police needed more than words. They needed proof. That proof came from a nearby doorbell camera. The footage showed Michael rushing out of the house, calling for help, exactly as he described. But there was something else. Another man. A shadowy figure wearing gloves, moving through backyards, covering cameras with his hand. Whoever this man was, he was the real killer. Investigators started looking into Amy's life, and one name kept surfacing: Gareth Perhouse. He was a photographer Amy had dated nearly a decade earlier. Their relationship had been turbulent, filled with reports of violence and stalking. In 2011, Amy had tried to file a restraining order, claiming he had suffocated and assaulted her, but it was denied for lack of evidence. A year later, she tried again and succeeded, but even after that, Gareth refused to let go. Friends said he harassed her online, left flowers at her doorstep, and followed her to public events. In January 2020, just 1 month before her death, Amy attended an awards event for a therapy organization. She was stunned to find Gareth there, working as a photographer. Witnesses say he confronted her angrily, accusing her of ruining his life. Amy was so disturbed by the encounter that she told friends, if anything ever happened to her, it was Gareth. It was not just fear talking. Gareth later sent her voice messages begging for a chance to explain himself, his tone eerie and obsessive. When detectives compared Gareth's image to the man on the doorbell footage, it was an exact match. A warrant to search his home turned up syringes filled with nicotine, blood-stained clothes, and scratches on his body. DNA found under Amy's fingernails confirmed it. She had fought back, and his skin was under her nails. The case was airtight. On February 16th, just one day after Amy's death, police arrested Gareth Purhouse. But in custody, he showed no remorse. In recorded phone calls from jail, he made jokes about becoming famous, even suggesting his old comedy routines could now make millions. He acknowledged he would not be released, laughing as he said, "I have seen what is coming at me, and it is not good." Even then, he was granted bond, a decision that quickly backfired.
So you said you're not getting out?
Correct.
Ever? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. I've seen what's coming at me, and it's not good. I'm not getting out.
Right after being released, Gareth went straight to the Los Angeles International Airport, seemingly to flee the country. That violation led to his immediate rearrest, and this time there would be no second chance. His trial began in August 2023. The defense claimed Gareth did not mean to hurt Amy, that he only wanted to talk and brought the nicotine syringe to harm himself, not her. They argued she might have accidentally fallen while trying to escape, but prosecutors painted a much darker picture.
Is that she comes home, encounters Mr. Purhouse. In a panic, she runs through her bedroom to her balcony, climbs up and over the railing, attempts to lower herself or climb down, and is unsuccessful and falls.
They said Gareth had planned the murder, breaking into her home on Valentine's Day with a syringe full of poison, furious at being rejected. The evidence supported their theory. The syringe, the signs of strangulation, the broken rosary beads leading from her bedroom to the balcony. Gareth never testified. He sat silently as the jury reviewed the evidence, the footage, and the years of abuse Amy endured. After deliberation, the jury returned their verdict in September 2023. Guilty of first-degree murder, Gareth Purhouse was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Amy's story sent shockwaves through Los Angeles. She was loved, respected, and known for helping others heal from trauma, only to become a victim of it herself. Her death became a reminder of how deeply obsession can twist love into something fatal, and how even the most public figures can suffer in silence behind closed doors. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We are pushing to hit 200,000 subscribers before the year ends. It feels impossible, but I know we can achieve it together because your support has been unreal. I know you'll subscribe, so without wasting more time, let's get back to the video. It was the morning of April 10th, 2023, when a multi-agency law enforcement team set out to serve a warrant. The officers were searching for a 26-year-old man named William Edward Schindler, who was wanted on several felony charges, including drug possession and fleeing from police. But what was supposed to be a controlled arrest quickly turned into chaos. As officers approached the home, their radios filled with frantic voices. "Shots fired," one yelled. Another shouted for medics, saying he thought he had been hit. Body camera footage later revealed the sheer intensity of that moment.
Police, search warrant. Search warrant. Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Officers ducked behind vehicles, calling for backup and trying to locate the source of gunfire. The air was filled with panic, but also determination. At around 4 in the afternoon, Schindler and 2 others inside the house had been monitoring the officers through a surveillance system. He reportedly told the others that he wasn't going to be arrested that day, then ran upstairs, taking a position from which he could open fire. The officers outside immediately returned fire, trying to contain the situation without losing anyone else. Wilmer Police Officer Jason Hay was hit in the lower torso. His fellow officers dragged him to safety, covering him while they radioed for an emergency response. Despite the chaos, their training kicked in. They secured the area, established defensive positions, and began negotiating. Schindler had a criminal history that already forbade him from owning or handling any firearms. But that day, Armed and defiant, he chose confrontation over surrender. As officers regrouped, Yellow Medicine Chief Deputy Travis Peterson managed to get Schindler on the phone. Peterson's voice was calm but firm, a lifeline in a volatile standoff. His goal was simple: keep Schindler talking and convince him to come out peacefully. Peterson reassured him that no one wanted things to escalate further. "I'm just talking to you right now," he said. "I want to keep talking to you on the phone." Through the tense minutes that followed, officers coordinated over the radio while Peterson tried to de-escalate things. He told Schindler that no one was going to hurt him if he surrendered peacefully.
You get down to your all by yourself. I'm trying to talk to you, okay? It's not going to hurt you.
0213.
Reminding him that the officers outside were just doing their jobs. Meanwhile, paramedics were treating Officer Haye, who had been struck by a grazing bullet through his back and side. Despite the pain, he stayed conscious, giving updates to his team. His quick recovery and composure would later earn him recognition and honors for bravery under fire. As the standoff stretched past an hour, the situation remained delicate. Schindler's tone over the phone wavered between defiance and exhaustion. The negotiators could sense that he was running out of energy, both physically and emotionally. Slowly, the conversation began to turn. Peterson asked him to step outside, promising that no one would tackle him or throw him to the ground. "I'm not going to throw you on the ground," Peterson told him.
We have negotiators on scene.
Then I'll come talk to you, okay?
They just left Wilmer.
You want that shield?
I'm not going to throw you on the ground.
SWAT's here. Perfect.
"They'll handle everything respectfully. Just come out safely." His tone was patient, the kind of calm that only comes from years of experience in crisis negotiation. After more than an hour of tense discussion, Schindler finally agreed to come out. Officers spotted him through the window, then confirmed his position over the radio. "I see him," one officer said. "We've got eyes on him." Slowly, Schindler stepped outside, unarmed, and was taken into custody without further resistance. The relief among the officers was palpable. "Thanks for coming out, bud," one said as they secured the scene. The danger had passed, but the emotional weight of the standoff lingered. Officer Haye was quickly transported to the hospital, where he was treated for his injuries and eventually made a full recovery. His courage that day would later earn him an honorable mention from the National Association of Police Organizations and the Law Enforcement Purple Heart from the American Police Hall of Fame Foundation. As for William Schindler, the legal aftermath was significant. He was initially charged with 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree assault, and 1 count of possession of ammunition. But as the court proceedings unfolded, most of those charges were dropped as part of a plea deal. In the end, Schindler was sentenced to 17.5 years in prison. Under the terms of his sentence, he would be eligible for supervised release after serving 2/3 of his time, meaning he could walk free in roughly 10 years. The body camera footage from that day now serves as both evidence and education, a reminder of how quickly law enforcement operations can spiral into life or death situations. What began as a routine warrant service became an hours-long standoff that tested the bravery, discipline, and compassion of every officer on the scene. For Officer Haye and his colleagues, it was another example of how unpredictable and dangerous the job can be. And for viewers watching the footage, it stands as a haunting but powerful testament to the thin line between chaos and control, one that law enforcement officers walk every single day. It was a quiet Monday morning, the 27th of March, 2023, when the calm of Nashville, Tennessee was shattered by a tragedy that no one saw coming. At exactly 9:53 in the morning, 28-year-old Audrey Hale was captured on surveillance footage, approaching the Covenant School, a private Christian academy that served children from preschool through 6th grade. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. She appeared calm, patiently searching for a parking space, but within minutes, that calm would dissolve into chaos that would shake not just the city, but the entire nation. Investigators later revealed that Audrey had entered the premises through a side door connected to the church on the property. She was carrying 3 legally purchased firearms, a rifle, a carbine, and a handgun. For reasons still not fully understood, the school became her target. Surveillance footage showed her firing through the glass doors at the entrance to gain access to the building, then moving methodically through the halls lined with children's artwork, classrooms, and cubbies. By 10:21, officers were already racing toward the scene. Dispatchers received urgent calls as students and teachers secured themselves inside rooms. The first responding officers, including Rex Engelbert and Michael Colazzo, entered the school with remarkable speed. Their body cameras captured the tension as they moved through hallways, calling out to each other, clearing rooms, and searching for the source of the gunfire. The sound of alarms filled the air. They followed the shots to the second floor, where they finally confronted the assailant. Within 14 minutes of the first emergency call, police had ended the threat, bringing the rampage to a stop. But 6 lives were already gone. Among the victims were 3 9-year-old children, William Kinney, Evelyn Ducott, and Hallie Scruggs, along with 3 adults, 60 years old head of school, Catherine Kuntz, 61 years old custodian Mike Hill, and substitute teacher Cynthia Peak. Each of them represented the heart of a close-knit community that believed their school was a safe haven. Catherine Kuntz was remembered as a devoted educator with an unwavering passion for her students. Mike Hill, a father and grandfather, had worked at the school for 14 years and was beloved by students and staff alike. Cynthia Peak had filled in that morning to help guide young minds, a simple act of kindness that placed her in harm's way. For the families, the heartbreak was unbearable. Pastor Chad Scruggs, whose daughter Hallie was among the children lost, described her as a precious gift. Through tears, he told his congregation that he believed she was now in the arms of God, and that one day they would be reunited. Evelyn's family described her as a light for her family, while friends of William spoke of his joyful spirit and kindness. At a memorial service held only hours after the tragedy, Evelyn's sister, 11 years old, broke down crying, saying she did not want to be an only child. It was a moment that captured the pain shared by every parent and child in Nashville that day. As investigators searched for answers, they uncovered that Audrey Hale had legally purchased 7 firearms from 5 different stores, hiding them around her home, despite her parents' belief that she no longer owned any. The police confirmed that she had been under medical care for an emotional disorder, and her parents had expressed concerns that she should not possess weapons. Chief John Drake of the Nashville Metro Police stated that if authorities had known of her intentions or instability, they would have intervened. Sadly, no one realized the danger until it was too late. Police found writings at her home and in her car, including maps and diagrams of the school. They also discovered notes suggesting she had considered other targets in the area, including a shopping mall. Investigators were cautious about speculating on her motive, and they stated that the attack appeared carefully planned rather than spontaneous. Some reports indicated she may have once attended the Covenant School and possibly held resentment toward it, but officials emphasized that no conclusive motive had been established. Friends and former teachers later described Audrey as quiet and talented. She had graduated from the Nassau College of Art and Design in 2022, where her instructors remembered her as an artist with potential. One former teacher mentioned that she had openly grieved a romantic partner's death in the past, and had asked to be referred to by a new name, reflecting a period of personal struggle. These emotional wounds, combined with growing isolation, may have contributed to her state of mind in the months leading up to the shooting. The release of the body camera footage drew national attention. It showed the extraordinary bravery of the officers who entered the building without hesitation, determined to prevent more loss of life. Their decisive actions stood in contrast to delayed police responses seen in other tragedies. Nashville officials praised the officers for their speed and courage, which likely saved many lives. In the days following the tragedy, the city of Nashville was united in mourning. Vigils were held across churches and community centers, where thousands gathered to light candles, pray, and comfort one another. Governor Bill Lee shared that one of the victims, Cynthia Peak, had been a close friend of his wife and was supposed to have dinner with them that evening. "Everyone is hurting," he said with solemnity. The Covenant School, which once represented peace and faith, became the center of an outpouring of grief and reflection. Parents tied ribbons and left flowers outside the gates, while children who survived the attack returned to write notes of love and remembrance for their friends and teachers. Although the school's halls had been filled with fear that morning, the community's spirit remained unbroken. The tragedy renewed conversations about firearm access and mental health awareness in America. President Joe Biden called for renewed efforts to limit the availability of high-powered rifles, urging lawmakers to act. Yet for the families of those who were lost, political debates offered little comfort. Their focus was on remembering the lives that were taken, lives full of promise, kindness, and faith. What began as a normal morning at a Christian school ended as one of the darkest days in Nashville's history. 6 lives were gone, countless others were scarred, and a community's sense of safety was forever changed. Even through the grief, stories of bravery, love, and faith continued to shine, reminding the world that light can still emerge from the darkest moments. On the 26th of September, 2023, the quiet town of Qaraqosh in northern Iraq was filled with laughter and music. A wedding celebration was underway at the Al Haytham Hall, where nearly 1,000 guests had gathered to celebrate Revan and Hanin Isho's big day. The couple had survived years of conflict and displacement, and their wedding symbolized new beginnings for both families. Inside the decorated hall, joy filled the air. The bride, radiant in a white gown, and the groom, elegant in a black suit, swayed under a glittering ceiling as cameras captured every second of their first dance. Guests cheered and recorded the moment on their phones, unaware that the happiest day of the couple's lives would soon become one of the darkest nights in Iraq's recent history. As the lights dimmed and a soft melody played, 4 small pyrotechnic devices on the floor shot harmless-looking sparks into the air. These indoor fireworks were supposed to add magic to the moment, illuminating the dance floor with golden light. But the sparks floated higher than expected, brushing against the fabric and plastic decorations hanging from the ceiling. Within seconds, a tiny spark made contact. A faint glow appeared overhead, followed by a sudden burst of flame that began spreading faster than anyone could react. Guests gasped, thinking it was part of the show, until a piece of flaming material fell onto the floor. Then panic erupted. The ceiling, made of low-cost panels and covered with synthetic drapes, ignited like paper. The flames raced across the hall, feeding on the plastic ornaments that now rained down in burning fragments. Within moments, the once festive venue turned into a terrifying inferno. Screams filled the air as guests tried to escape, tripping over chairs and each other. The power went out, plunging the room into complete darkness. Thick black smoke filled the hall, making it almost impossible to breathe. The exits, few and narrow, quickly became clogged. People pushed, stumbled, and fell as they tried to reach safety. Revan grabbed Hanshin's hand, pulling her through the chaos. Her gown made it difficult to move, the long fabric catching underfoot, but he refused to let go. Together they pushed through the smoke, their eyes burning, their lungs filling with fumes. At last, they found a door leading to the kitchen and burst outside into the cool night air. They collapsed to the ground, gasping, but as they looked back, the sight was unbearable. The wedding hall was engulfed in flames, the roof had begun to cave in, and cries from trapped guests echoed from within. Outside, chaos continued. Families screamed the names of their loved ones still inside. Some guests, desperate to save others, tried to go back in, but the heat was too intense. A group of bystanders found a bulldozer nearby and attempted to break through the hall's walls. The concrete gave way, but the sudden rush of oxygen only made the fire grow stronger. Within minutes, the entire building was a blazing wreck. By morning, the scale of the tragedy was clear. More than 100 people had died, and hundreds more were injured. Many victims were so badly burned that DNA testing was needed for identification. Outside the Hamdaniya District Hospital, heartbroken families gathered, waiting for news that never came. A woman named Mariam Kadra wept uncontrollably as she learned that her daughter and 3 young grandchildren had not survived. This was not a wedding, she cried. This was hell. For Revan and Hanan, survival brought no relief. Revan lost 15 members of his family that night, while Hanan lost almost everyone: her mother, brothers, uncles, and cousins. Her father was left in critical condition. Their dream of starting a new life together had been replaced by unbearable grief. Investigations revealed the disturbing truth. The Al Haytham wedding hall had been built illegally, using flammable sandwich panels filled with plastic insulation. The hall was designed for about 500 people, but had hosted nearly twice that number. Fire extinguishers were missing, and the exits were poorly marked. Authorities later confirmed that the pyrotechnic display had ignited the ceiling decorations, triggering the fire. But videos that circulated online led to confusion. Some showed people touching the sparks without getting burned, claiming the fireworks couldn't have caused such devastation. Experts later confirmed otherwise. The sparks may have been cool at the source, but the moment they touched the lightweight decorations, the fire spread almost instantly. The Iraqi Interior Ministry launched an official investigation. 14 people were arrested, including the hall's owner, who was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Several local officials, including the mayor and civil defense chief, were dismissed for negligence. The government declared 3 days of national mourning after the funeral took place. Entire families were laid to rest together, some in shared graves. For the people of Karakosh, the tragedy felt like the cruel reopening of old wounds. The town had survived years of war and displacement, only to be torn apart again by one night of negligence. International leaders, including the United States government, offered condolences and support, but for survivors, no help could undo what had been lost. Today, the haunting footage of that night remains one of the most disturbing videos ever captured. A joyful moment turned into unimaginable horror within seconds. The images of Revan and Hanan dancing beneath that shimmering ceiling now carry a tragic weight, a reminder of how quickly celebration can turn to sorrow. The couple eventually left the city, unable to bear the memories that lingered in every corner. But for those who lost loved ones, Karakosh will forever be a place where joy and grief became one. It was meant to be the happiest day of Isra Sablani's life. Dressed in her wedding gown, she smiled for the camera in Beirut's Saifi Square, unaware that within seconds, her joy would turn to horror. Just before 6 in the evening on August 4, 2020, a fire broke out at the port of Beirut. Witnesses recalled seeing welders working to fix a hole in a warehouse wall when sparks flew, igniting something inside. Unbeknownst to anyone nearby, that hangar wasn't just storing fireworks. Inside sat over 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, a chemical compound known for its devastating explosive potential. 9 firefighters and a paramedic were dispatched to the scene, believing they were responding to a simple fire. But what came next would be one of the most powerful non-nuclear explosions ever captured on camera. Within moments, a gigantic blast ripped through Lebanon's capital, sending a massive shockwave that flattened everything in its path. Footage from the city showed a white dome of air expanding outward, followed by a dark red cloud that swallowed the skyline. Buildings crumbled, vehicles were tossed like toys, and the sound echoed across the sea, heard as far away as Cyprus, over 100 miles from Beirut. The explosion killed 218 people, injured more than 7,000, and left hundreds of thousands homeless. Experts later compared the force to a 3.3 magnitude earthquake. The shockwave shattered glass at the Beirut airport 5 miles away, and scientists at the University of Sheffield estimated the blast's energy to be equivalent to over 1,000 tons of TNT. In an instant, a portion of Beirut's port and nearby neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. Massive grain silos collapsed, warehouses disintegrated, and a luxury cruise ship, the Orient Queen, capsized at the dock, killing 2 crew members. A crater nearly 500 feet wide filled with seawater where the hangar once stood. The aftermath was catastrophic. Streets were littered with debris, overturned cars, and shattered concrete. Entire blocks of homes and shops were flattened. Power lines were destroyed, plunging neighborhoods into darkness just when survivors needed light the most. Hospitals, already strained by the country's economic crisis, were overwhelmed. St. George Hospital, located less than a mile from the explosion, was heavily damaged, yet staff treated patients outside on the pavement amid broken glass and chaos. Other clinics worked by flashlight in parking lots, doing what they could for the flood of wounded arriving from every direction. The World Health Organization reported that 20 hospitals and dozens of clinics were destroyed or severely damaged. Medical workers described scenes of panic, treating cuts and fractures caused by flying debris. The city was unrecognizable, cloaked in smoke, ash, and the acrid scent of burning chemicals. Aid agencies like the Lebanese Red Cross and countless volunteers stepped in to shelter the displaced, while the government faced widespread criticism for its delayed response. Days after the explosion, protests erupted across Beirut, with citizens demanding answers and accountability. Investigators later revealed the horrifying truth. Hangar 12 had been storing ammonium nitrate since 2013. The chemical was confiscated from a ship owned by a Russian businessman, which had docked in Beirut en route to Mozambique. The ship had encountered technical issues, and after being impounded for unpaid port fees, it was abandoned. The cargo, highly volatile and dangerous, was moved into the warehouse where it sat unsecured for over 6 years. Despite multiple warnings from customs officials and port authorities about the dangers, the government failed to act. Reports as early as 2014 urged the immediate removal or sale of the material, but letters and emails went unanswered. Years later, Welders attempting to repair a damaged wall near the chemical storage likely triggered the disaster. The combination of sparks, oil, and fireworks stored nearby created the perfect storm. The explosion devastated not just infrastructure but also trust in Lebanon's leadership. Over 20 port and customs officials were arrested, and the prime minister at the time, Hassan Diab, was charged with negligence. However, legal proceedings were slow and politically complicated, as many government figures were shielded by parliamentary immunity. Investigations dragged on, and frustration grew among survivors still searching for justice. In 2022, a civil case was filed in the United States by a Swiss-based organization seeking compensation for victims. Around the same time, Spanish authorities arrested a Portuguese man, Jorge Moreira, accused of ordering the ammonium nitrate shipment while working for an explosives company in Mozambique. Though later released under restrictions, his case reignited global attention on how such a massive stockpile ended up in a city's heart. By early 2023, new charges were filed against 8 Lebanese officials. Yet for many citizens, accountability still felt out of reach. Through all this tragedy, small moments of resilience emerged. Isra Sablani, the bride whose wedding footage went viral, survived the blast. In the chaos that followed, still wearing her gown, she began helping the injured, drawing on her experience as a doctor. A month later, she and her husband moved to the United States, carrying with them the haunting memories of that day. Even now, years later, the scars remain. Reconstruction has been painfully slow, with tens of thousands of homes and businesses still awaiting repair. But amid the ruins stands a symbol of remembrance, a statue built from shattered glass and twisted metal found in the wreckage. It depicts a woman holding a sword, her stance defiant, her gaze unbroken. At her feet lies a broken clock, frozen at 6:08, the exact moment the explosion changed Beirut forever. The image serves as both a memorial and a warning, reminding the world of what can happen when negligence meets tragedy. It was the night of February 15th in Minneapolis when a series of frantic calls began to flood the emergency dispatch center. Neighbors reported hearing what sounded like a burst of rapid gunfire outside their windows.
I just heard what I thought was right outside my window, automatic gunfire.
What do you think is automatic gunfire?
Yeah.
A black SUV sat idling in front of an apartment building, its doors wide open. Witnesses described a man in a red shirt sprinting from the scene, followed by a young woman crying out for help as she stumbled down the street. When officers arrived, they were met with a chilling sight. The black Yukon was riddled with bullet holes, its headlights still shining against the curb. Inside, a 23-year-old man lay motionless, struck by a fatal shot. The young woman, who had been screaming moments earlier, was found nearby with a wound on the right side of her chest. Through gasps of pain, she told officers that she and her boyfriend had been caught in a deal gone wrong. Police quickly secured the scene, marking off dozens of shell casings that littered the pavement, each one a silent witness to what had just unfolded. Investigators counted 16 rounds, all traced back to the same weapon. But the horror wasn't over yet. Just blocks away, another emergency call came in. A man was lying in the lobby of a nearby apartment building, clutching his chest and calling for help. When officers entered, they found a 29-year-old man critically injured from a gunshot wound. He died before medics could stabilize him. The timing and proximity of both incidents sent a clear message. This wasn't random, it was deliberate. The hunt for the suspect began immediately. As detectives canvassed the area, surveillance footage from surrounding buildings began to piece together the puzzle. Cameras showed a silver Mercury sedan shadowing a black SUV moments before the shooting. Behind the wheel was 24-year-old Amir Rice. In the footage, Rice followed closely, parking in a nearby lot before jogging toward the building where the second victim lived. Minutes later, after the gunfire erupted, cameras captured him sprinting back to his car and driving off into the night. The evidence trail was precise. Investigators recreated his movements, even timing the distance between the apartment and his parked vehicle. It all matched perfectly. Within days, police traced the Mercury Sable back to Rice and moved in for the arrest. Body cam footage later showed officers approaching him cautiously, their voices steady but firm. "Hands out, hands out," one officer commanded.
Hands out, hands out. You're fine, hands out.
Rice complied, lying face down on the ground as they secured his hands. The officers discovered a firearm tucked into his pocket. He was calm, almost detached, as they read him his rights. When asked for his name, he simply replied, "Amir Rice." At the station, further evidence began to mount. The clothes he wore during his arrest were the same ones captured on camera the night of the shootings. Cell phone records placed him near the crime scenes at the exact time of the incidents. The investigation now had a clear suspect and a clear motive. Police obtained a warrant to search his residence. When the tactical team arrived, they announced themselves loudly before breaching the door. Inside, they discovered another handgun, an extended magazine, and accessories that matched the weapon type used at the scene. In total, the firearm could hold 16 rounds, the exact number of casings collected near the Yukon. Further digging uncovered online posts made by Rice before the shootings. In them, he hinted at a grudge against one of the victims, a man he believed had betrayed him years earlier. According to investigators, Rice suspected the victim of cooperating with authorities during a previous case that led to his conviction in 2017. That resentment, they believed, eventually turned into a deadly fixation. Records revealed that Rice's past was filled with violent encounters. In 2018, he had been convicted of aggravated robbery and sentenced to prison. 4 years later, in 2022, he was again convicted, this time for illegal possession of a firearm. Despite being on probation and banned from owning any weapons, he still managed to arm himself. By March 2024, the case reached its conclusion. After weeks of testimony, the jury found Eimer Rice guilty on all counts, including 2 charges of first-degree murder, 1 charge of attempted murder, and 2 additional counts of second-degree murder. The verdict brought a quiet sense of closure, but it also underscored the devastation left behind. 2 lives had been taken, families were broken, a community was left to make sense of how a cycle of anger had spiraled into tragedy. When the judge read the sentence, Rice showed little emotion. Life imprisonment without parole. It was the maximum penalty, a fate decided by the very evidence that had tracked him from one camera to another, from one decision to the next. The courtroom fell silent as families of the victims embraced, their grief mixed with exhaustion. For them, justice didn't erase the pain, but it ensured accountability. The story of that February night became one of the city's most haunting reminders of how quickly violence can unravel lives, and how technology from 911 recordings to street cameras can bring clarity to even the darkest moments. In the end, investigators said it best. Every step, every frame of footage, every shell casing told the same story. One man's choices turned a cold winter night into a permanent scar on an entire community. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you found this video informative, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what we drop next. We cover stories like this almost every day, and trust me, you don't want to be left behind. If you can't wait until the next upload, there are more videos popping up on your screen in just a few seconds. Click one and keep watching. Until then, take care. I'm out.